Okay, let's look at completing the square. So another way that we can solve quadratic equations is by completing the square. First, we want to create perfect square trinomials so that we can complete the square. So what is a perfect square trinomial? A perfect square trinomial is three terms, and those three terms will factor into, so if I have x squared plus bx plus c, my perfect square trinomial, half of b squared will be equal to c. I'm going to put a in here. A is going to be 1. And it will factor into x plus when I take half of b times x plus when I take half of b, which means I can write it as x plus b over 2 squared. All right, we're not going to use those letters, and we're not going to write it like that, but the process is going to be dividing the middle number by 2 and squaring it to create this perfect square trinomial. So let me give you an example of a perfect square trinomial. X squared plus 8x plus 16 is a perfect square trinomial. Half of 8 is 4, so 8 over 2, it's b over 2, is 4, and 4 squared is 16. So I took half of this, squared it, and I got that. It's a perfect square trinomial, which means this will factor into x plus 4 times x plus 4, or x plus 4 squared. That's what that guy will factor into. Okay, so how can we solve a quadratic equation by completing the square? So we are going to force these quadratics into perfect square trinomials so we can complete the square. And the way we do that is by filling in this term so that we create a perfect square trinomial. Once we do that, so let's say that this was our equation, x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 2. So once we've done that, we can factor x squared plus 8x plus 16. It factors into x plus 4 times x plus 4. We saw that. So that's x plus 4 squared equals 2. And now we can take the square root of both sides and solve from there, which we'll do in a minute. But that is the goal, to get a binomial squared so that we can solve using square roots like we have in the past. All right, so let's check out this next part. Solve each equation by using square roots. So similar to what I just did, we are going to do that with these problems. So I am going to factor this. I cannot take the square root like it is, okay? I can't take the square root of these individually or the whole thing. I have to factor it to get to a binomial squared. So I want numbers that multiply to be 49 and add to be 14, and that's 7 and 7 because this is a perfect square trinomial. I take half of 14, 14 divided by 2 is 7, 7 squared is 49, that's exactly the number I'm looking at here. So this factors into x plus 7 times x plus 7. Still can't do anything with this because it's not the zero product property. This is not 0. So I can't do what we usually do when it's 0, unfortunately. But I can write this as x plus 7 squared. Then I take the square root of both sides. Remember, we put plus or minus. So I have plus or minus the square root of 14 is equal to x plus 7. Subtract 7 from both sides. I usually stick it in the front of this. So negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 14 equals x, and I can flip that around. X equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 14. All right, and those are my two x-intercepts, negative 7 plus the square root of 14, negative 7 minus the square root of 14. All right, let's do this one. I'm going to actually flip this one around. So I have the x squared stuff on this left side, and it doesn't matter how you do it, but I did one this way, so I kind of want to switch it around. So when I divide 10 by 2, I get negative 5, and negative 5 squared is 25. So I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to go ahead and factor this. It factors into x minus 5 squared, and that's equal to 9. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 5 equals plus or minus square root of 9, which is square root of 9 is 3. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides, put it in the front of the plus or minus. So 5 plus or minus 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8, and 5 minus 3 is 2. So I have x-intercepts at 8 and 2. All right? Okay, so those were already set up with perfect square trinomials. Now we are going to complete the square. All right, so I am going to move this 6 out of the way because half of 8 is 4 and 4 squared is not 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. It's getting kicked off the island. All right, and then I am going to put blanks here so we can create a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to divide 8 by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Why am I scrunching this here? I don't know. Let me put it down here. I'm going to divide, let's try this again. I'm going to divide 8 by 2. It's positive 8. I'm taking the sign in front. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to put it in both blanks because if I add something to one side of the equation, I must do it to the other side. And then this is now a perfect square trinomial. And it factors into, notice this 4, x plus 4 squared, and then I put my terms together over here, so negative 6 plus 16 is 10. Take the square root of both sides and throw that plus or minus in the front. So x plus 4 equals plus or minus square root of 10. Subtract 4, and x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 10. All right, my two answers, negative 4 plus the square root of 10, negative 4 minus the square root of 10, but we can leave it compact like that. All right, you can pause the video and try this one, or you can just roll through it with me. Kicking negative 4 to the other side makes it a positive 4. So I added 4 to both sides. All right, now I'm going to complete the square. Divide b by 2, so negative 8. Negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. All right, then I'm going to factor this. Notice this is negative 8. Numbers that multiply to be 64 add to be negative 16. X minus 8 squared equals 68. Take the square root of both sides. So x minus 8 equals plus or minus the square root of 68. And then I'm going to solve for x by adding 8 to both sides. And we can clean up the square root of 68, but for time's sake, I'm just going to leave it. And yeah, 4 will go into it, so you could simplify that for sure. All right, so let's try this last one. Arrange our plans to create a rectangular pasturing enclosure. She has 340 meters of fencing available for the enclosure's perimeter and wants it to have an area of 6,000 meters squared, or square meters. What dimension should the rancher move? Well, first of use, not move, use. First of all, she has 340 meters of fencing available for the perimeter. All right, so those things are going to go together, so we want to circle those. And then we want area of 6,000. We want dimensions for our answer, so that means length and width are my dimensions of perimeter and area of a rectangle. Okay, so I know what I'm looking for. I know the things that I've been given. So let's start with perimeter. I know that perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So let's fill in what we know. We know the perimeter is 340, and I don't know the length, and I don't know the width. All right, so we're just going to leave it at that. All right, now let's move to area. We know that area is length times width, and we know that the area is 6,000 square meters. All right, so I'm going to leave that one at that. All right, so now I want to solve one equation and plug it into the other equation and solve for length or width, right? So it doesn't really matter which one we solve for. It really doesn't. You could do either one, right? I am going to solve for, I think I'll solve for the width. So I'm going to solve this equation for the width. So 340 minus 2 times the length, moving that over, equals 2 times the width. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to get the width. So 340 divided by 2 is 170. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 170 minus the length equals the width. All right, I'm going to take this and plug it in for W over here because they're the same length and width. Whether we're measuring the perimeter or the area, it's the same rectangle. All right, so I have 6,000 equals L times 170 minus L. So 6,000 equals 170 times L minus L squared. Okay, cool. Look, this looks like a quadratic. I'm going to move this stuff over here. So L squared minus 170L plus 6,000 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to factor this or complete the square and finish this. I don't think that half of 170 squared is 6,000. So I'm going to divide 170 by 2. And then I'm going to square it. So 170 divided by 2 is 85, and 85 squared is not 6,000. So I'm going to move that over. And 85 squared on my handy dandy calculator is 7,000 plus 7,225. And I'm going to add that to this side also, 7,225. And then I'm going to complete the square. So L minus 85 squared equals 1,225. Then I'm going to take the square root of both sides, so I get plus or minus. The square root of 1,225 is 35. I'm coming this way with it. So I have L minus 85 equals plus or minus 35. So L equals 85 plus or minus 35. So 85 plus 35, 85 minus 35. So I have the length is 120 or the length is 50. And then I could take those and plug them in to either one of these two equations and solve for the width. So when the length is 120, the width is 50 when I plug that back in, and when the length is 50, the width is 120. All right, so basically the rancher should make two sides that are 120 meters and two sides that are 50 meters. Okay, so that's one way that you could set up this problem and solve it. All right, drop questions at the end of the video. See you soon.